Gatekeepers of Governance, a two-day corporate governance summit organized by Excellence Enablers, saw stalwarts from India Inc. discuss and deliberate on good corporate governance practices. The ownership management conflict in the public sector made for an enthralling debate amidst the other engaging sessions. And this formidable panel comprised of the Chairman of Indian Oil Corporation, V. Ashok, the Vice Chairman of Balco, S.K. Rungta, the former Secretary of the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion and Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Ajay Shankar, and was moderated by the Professor of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, T.T. Ram Mohan.
The topic for this session is the ownership management conflict in the public sector. In this session, we are going to look at this conflict between the dominant owner and other shareholders in the PSU context. Does this problem exist? How does it exist? Well, it manifests itself in various ways. Now the question is, the governance issue is, how do you resolve this conflict in the context of PSUs? There are one or two answers that have been proposed. One answer is simply to privatize the PSUs, because you say that government is incapable congenitally of managing this conflict satisfactorily. One answer which has been proposed from time to time, both for PSUs and for public sector banks, is to create a holding company for PSUs and for public sector banks. So I'll stop here for the moment and elicit the views of my colleagues on this panel to both these fundamental ideas. First, is it meaningful to think of a holding company which completely distances government from control? And second, what do you think of the alternative suggestion I've made? So let me begin with Mr. Ajay Shankar, who's a very senior bureaucrat and has seen the working of PSUs from very close quarters.
The fact of the matter is that the CPSUs work under great complexity, both as far as the management is concerned as well as the ownership. Let me just list some of the complexities before the management. And I will list the negatives first, because when you are running management, your first objective is not to get into trouble or not to have downside. So the first objective of all management is to see that they don't run foul of the CBC, the CBI and Parliament committees. So that's a binding constraint. Then you have to take care of the internal performance-based incentive systems that you inherit so that you take your employees along. So any management discretion is constrained by that. Then government has put in place this annual MOU system, which has, in my view, severe limitations. But management's constraint is to see that with the MOU we achieve excellent targets. Now, if you look at the owner is the government, as the dominant shareholder. And I think we do not have adequate conceptual clarity about what the government sees as its role as the owner. Now, if the government believes that the enterprise should be truly independent, then your solution of a holding company is a good idea. The other solution is that the government brings its ownership below 51% to 47-48%, in which case it can be a professionally managed company with institutional and other investors playing a major role. And it can look at a situation where it is not taken over by an MNC or by a private industrial house. So you said the type A model of governance of the West could be inducted. But that would happen when government is really politically convinced that it wants to let go. And the enterprise has to run as a truly professional enterprise, pursuing shareholder value and profits. When that happens, we will see movement in that direction. Now, if we look at the government overall objectives, the government also sees its ownership of these enterprises as giving it the space to pursue other developmental goals or public policy objectives. So in this complexity, it is the government at the policy and political level and the way it moves that we will get the outcomes you are looking for.
What I would like to ask Mr. Ashok is, what is the answer to these complexities? Is it a holding company, or do you think that it's possible to make the board more effective within the present framework of government control?
Whether a bigger holding company is an answer to be that cushion between the government, the owner, and the company as such. Well, you can look at it in a different way. I would say that probably conceptually, the government was also right in terms of certain frameworks which have been created, which is, I mean, the creation of companies of Maharatna or Navaratna status. I mean, the whole objective of that was to provide independence to these organizations in terms of management. When earlier for every project of ours, we used to run to the government and then wait for the investment board to clear it, and from conceptualization to implementation, it used to take decades, if not more. So, from that aspect, yes, there's a lot of freedom. From the aspect of creation of independent decision-making body in terms of giving the necessary powers, yes, the government's objective was also there. But whether it is actually implemented in letter and spirit, probably there can be questions raised on that. So, to my mind, one of the solutions would also be, I mean, I would say specifically, do you have a super board as a cushion? I think it will be too difficult to manage. To some extent, I would feel that what really needs to be created is a body which will make a policy or create the environment or make policies which is in between the government and these boards, which would say to what extent the government can get on with this. So that is one prescription. I mean, when they make a framework clearly, if the government is going to make the policy and they are also going to manage the company, vis-a-vis the government plus there is one intermediate step which is not managing the company in terms of a board, but which makes a policy framework in terms of what sort of intervention the government should do with the public sector undertakings. I think that could be one model which comes to my mind. The other thing is, of course, getting the boards filled up, having truly independent people, having a little more enlightened government directors, and who understand that, yes, I mean, our business is not to run the company on a day-to-day basis. So, these are two things which can be done, and probably which will provide a fair solution to the problems which are being faced by the organizations. I would also say that there is probably one more option. I mean, if you are able to reduce the stake to 51% and increase the number of stakeholders outside, that could be also a solution.
Mr. Rungta is in the fortunate position of having moved from a highly complex situation, which is managing Steel Authority of India, to what he tells me is a far more comfortable role, which is chairman of privately owned BALCO. When we are discussing, when you're having a discussions before we came in here, he also told me something about the lack of effectiveness of PSU boards. He said that when push comes to shove, the independent directors on the board really don't stand up to the 2 or 3 government nominees which are there, who are there on the board. So given these realities, Mr. Rungta, can you tell us what can we attempt by way of governance reform in PSUs, and is holding company the answer?
You know, holding company concept which we are talking, it is holding company concept is nothing much beyond what government has already stated its objective with regard to the Maharatna company. And to my mind, it will be a good beginning if the government's intentions are to really run these PSUs in a professional manner. Then we have today 6 or 7 Maharatna companies. To begin with, government can make this experiment that we have a single holding structure where all the 6 or 7 Maharatna companies are brought in. They are as such supposed to be, their boards are supposed to be independent. We put the, right professional board and make them as board-driven company. Government doesn't lose the control on those PSUs. We have a, single holding company controlling these 7 Maharatnas. They will certainly monitor that what kind of performance these companies are doing, but they don't have to do a day-to-day micromanagement of these companies. And they will also take decisions as to what extent, they should dilute their holding in these companies, or to what extent, they should be given some kind of other strategic direction. That direction can be taken by this single holding structure, where this all 7 Maharatna companies can come. Because unless we make the break from what it is today, both in terms of the structure as well as the way we implement, I suppose we will be seeing some incremental things here and there, but material change will not come about.